Hello, listeners, and welcome to the Apple Pie Club, where every week we invite you to join us for a cozy and insightful conversation on life, spirituality, and Stoic wisdom. So grab a slice of apple pie, get comfortable, and tune in with us as we share our thoughts, experiences, and wisdom on navigating the twists and turns of life's journey. Whether you're seeking inspiration, a fresh perspective, or simply some heartfelt camaraderie, you're in for a treat with the Apple Pie Club. So sit back, relax, and let's dive in to this week's soul-nourishing discussion. And today we're going to be talking about Know Thyself by Socrates, but also, as Thales stated, that the most difficult thing in life is actually to know yourself. And this dates back to ancient Greek inscriptions, and the injunction of know thyself has been encouraging people to engage in search for self-understanding. And this really is, again, where we discussed in our last session, something that we have to keep working with, keep practicing. We never, ever stop learning about ourselves. We never, ever stop evolving. We never, ever stop about considering, can we approach something in a different way? Can we think in a different way, right? Because we never stop growing. And that is key to any study of philosophy or spirituality, is continuous improvement, continuous reflection, contemplation, slowing down and working out how possibly can we interact and live life in a more fulfilling way. So I'm going to hand over to you, Skye.
Thanks, Tanya. Yeah, I love this quote as well. We're doing some great work on these great quotes over the last few weeks. I love it. So, and as you mentioned, it flows so well from our session on Heraclitus about the river and how the river's always changing and we're always changing, and how self-discovery is, as you said, a lifelong journey. Every situation we encounter, every person we meet, they challenge us to get to know ourselves better. In fact, there's this wonderful school of thought that says, if you can see it in another person, take the red dot off your own forehead. This idea of mirroring, and it's commonly well known nowadays. And so I love the idea that we can also see the good in others, which means there's good in us. But also, if something's really irritating you or annoying you, I caught myself doing this the other day. I said, gee, that person annoys me when they do that. And I suddenly realized, I do it. Take the red dot of my own forehead. Otherwise, it wouldn't be annoying. So we're always looking and reflecting and growing. And it can be painful at first, when we begin to see things in life that we thought, oh, gosh, do I really do that? But I love the fact that, as we mentioned with Adyashanti, acceptance. First of all, accept ourselves, have compassion with ourselves, self-compassion, and compassion with others. This famous quote says, it's the wise person who chooses the path of self-discovery first.
Actually, I had an experience this morning. I got it really early, so it's still quite dark.
Yeah.
Because I had to get on a call.
Yeah.
Very early.
Yes.
And I wanted to walk the dog. So I've gone walking with the dog. And I always kind of reflect and think how some people have road rage, cyclists have cycling rage, joggers have jogging rage, walkers have walking rage. And everyone's in their own pocket of selfishness. Yeah. Yes. So I've got the dog on the lead, and then after a while I've taken him off the lead. And he is the type of dog who, will change direction quickly, granted. But I can't see what's happening behind me. And this woman jogging past, and she yells in my ear, like, put your dog on a lead, right? And I'm like, it's a walking area where dogs aren't meant to be on the lead. So I've said that, and she's annoyed me for a bit. So I've kind of thinking, no. Take a stoic perspective on this. Just don't let my mind run wild, because she, for a good 2 minutes, I was a bit like, if she comes back, I'm going to say something to her.
Yeah. Yes, we do.
Yeah. So I'm getting dog rage. She's got runner's rage.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I don't know what's going on in her life. Maybe she's fallen over a dog before. and
That's
hurt herself, right? I have no idea. And yes, Jed does have a habit of shooting off. So she's probably right.
yeah,
I probably need to, well, not keep him on the lead, but just go
yeah.
closer to me. Because that was earlier. There were more runners out than dog walkers. So, you
Yeah,
know, but that was another element of knowing myself, right? You're
yeah,
constantly learning because I think, oh, that's a like strange reaction I've had. Now, if I kept running with my anger and being annoyed by her, would I be really learning about myself? Probably not. But I tell you what, it's also done, and I want to talk about it from knowing ourselves and how difficult it is, right? Because it's not a piece of cake. Yeah.
no,
It's
no,
very hard. When we consider for a moment, I'm just going to go back. When we're first born, yeah, we're just born innocent. We've got no memory. We've got nothing. You've probably got some spirit, where you say they're an old soul, but nothing we can, actually recall when we're babies. And then we start living, yeah, and we get these experiences, and it's like an onion. Then each layer grows
yeah.
over us. So we're born with our DNA where we gravitate towards certain things, and we will get into a discussion of that sort of thing later on in our series. But so we're born, and then all of the experiences layer over and layer over and layer, and some really impact us and ingrain in our mind, right? Others don't, because obviously we can't have every single experience. That one will ingrain in my mind. That one, because she yelled at me and disturbed my peace.
Yeah.
And then I done self-reflection thinking, well, I could be responsible for her falling over and hurting herself, right? That experience has become a layer of my onion.
Yeah.
It's
Reinforcement of something. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's become an onion. So when we look at it, and when we're trying to know ourselves, we got to peel away all of those onion layers. Yeah, we got to
Absolutely.
really understand all the past experience, all the advice, all the shocks, all the beautiful moments, all that tapestry of life, and how that makes up who we are and what's working and not working.
I
So
love,
we
yeah.
peel away at it.
Yeah, I love that analogy of the onion because, as you know, I've spoken about my travels around the world and how it was rewiring my neural pathways. But as I look back, I now associate places with another layer of the onion because what I was really doing whilst I was changing those neural pathways was doing exactly as you've said, peeling a layer of the onion. And I always believed that, oh, this is the core now. This is the core. This is it. But I remember what I call a dark night of my soul. It was a real tough time for me. I was in Mexico, and I came across this layer in the onion where I realized that my whole life I'd felt inferior. I am inferior was my core self-concept. One of those limiting beliefs. In fact, I recently heard somebody refer to limiting beliefs as spells because they're words that people have spoken over you when you're growing up, and so you now believe them, and so they limit your possibilities and your potential, and so they're words that have influence over you. Which I like that analogy of a spell, and the way to get rid of that spell. Create some new words, create, as we've been talking about, as new growth statements. And so that's the hard part about knowing yourself too. But I also want to talk about this idea of knowing ourselves as a spirit being as well. So we are a spirit being, a divine being that's come and inhabited this earth suit for a time to live on planet Earth. I always say when we go to the moon, well, other people go to the moon, they put on a space suit, okay, go out of space, they put on a space suit that enables the body to live in those conditions, right? And so our earth suit allows our spirit to live here and have this experience on planet Earth and live in these conditions. And but I often say to myself, there was a time when I used to have this, what I was once told, a fractured sense of self. I got this great thought. Okay, you have a fractured sense of self. And what does that even mean? And I realized it was because I saw my spirit being and my human being as two completely different entities. And then I thought, okay, it evolved to, okay, so I have this place inside where my spirit lives. But if you think about a spacesuit, it's the same shape as your body, and it inhabits the whole human body, or the human body inhabits the whole spacesuit. And I feel like our spirit beings and our earth suits are so one and intertwined that us people talk about an aura. I think our spirits are even bigger than our earth suit. It's part of our aura. So I like to say, if I really knew myself as a spirit being connected to each other, one with each other and one with source, then really, how would I live my life here on earth? If I really believed that I had that much power to co-create experiences in my life, then how would I be living my life?
Absolutely. And, we also have these challenges that we keep coming up in with our lives. There's tons of things that can get in the way, externally and internally. We can be our own roadblock to challenges, and also we may be more influenced by external influences and societal expectations. Yeah. And all of that starts kind of layering over and over and over. So we've got to be very mindful of our inner dialogue and what we say to ourselves, and keep a check in on that. What are we saying to ourselves? How is that making us feel? But one thing I do want to say is, when we focus on getting to know ourselves, right, which is, as we've said numerous times, is a lifelong journey. When you focus on getting to know yourself using spirituality and philosophy, you can start to understand who you are. You can start to having a different outlook on life, which gives you a different level of control, which gives you a different level of self-worth, so that you can make better choices.
Mm-hmm.
And you can be way more authentic. Because if you know, the more you know yourself, and the more proud of who you are, and the more you know that you are living your values, and you're living life to total alignment with who you are, it allows you to be authentic. And I also think that it allows you to not be so affected by other people's opinions, because after all, someone's opinion is only their opinion. Only an opinion, to me, an opinion tells you something about the other person. It doesn't actually tell you anything about yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one book that I found really valuable for this was The Art of Being by Erich Fromm. And I loved his exploration of the concept of freedom. And the reason being is because freedom really is one of my top values. And I used to think that freedom meant that I wasn't constrained by any, shackles of other people telling me what to do, or having to be here at that time. And, I thought that's what freedom was. But when I started studying the art of being, it's not. It's about understanding who you are, going back to knowing yourself, understanding who you are. What do you value? What do you represent? What do you believe in? And live that, and be authentic to that. Don't be someone you're not, because you think you have to be, or you're trying to please anyone else, because that's not freedom.
No.
And that is not knowing yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just another one of those layers in the onion, right?
Yeah.
You got to keep peeling away at, who are you? What's influenced you?
Yeah, I love that. I love that phrase, know better, do better. And honestly, we really can't do better if we don't know better. But when we know better, we have a responsibility to do better. And the other thing, while you were speaking about that, is freedom, and that new definition that we're redefining freedom. Because I have a situation where I had a meeting with a group of people. We're organizing an event, a speaking event. And I was inviting another person in from another group, and they're on a Facebook Messenger. And so I put the link to this meeting in the wrong chat. And this person who was organizing this meeting came back to me, and she was so rude. You're undermining me. And I thought, oh my God, I just made a mistake. So I just, right here is where I had a choice. Right here is where my past life, I would have done one of two things. Told her off as well, said, excuse me, just made a mistake. And then I would have said, delete, I'm out of this group. Okay, walked off. Nobody treats me like this. Who do you think you are? I just made a mistake. But, I was able to stop and I was able to say, what's going on with this person that they can't even see that is such a disconnect here. They can't even see that I might have made a mistake. And so I gently and quietly, I took a deep breath and I just said, I'm really sorry. I'm not undermining you. I made a mistake. This chat is not for you. This was not for you. And I copied and pasted the chat from the other one. I said, I was responding to this just so that you're aware. And she became like butter. I became like her best friend in that meeting. And I thought, isn't that amazing? So what I also want to say is how wonderful it is when we see and recognize our own growth. We see and recognize our own personal development, where we know how we would have behaved a year ago, 6 months ago, 5 years ago, and we can behave differently because we now know better. We are actually at the place where we can do better as well. Marcy Shermoff teaches in her book on happiness and happy for no reason, actually, that we have the set point, and that was what was happening with this with this other person. So we'll always fall back. No matter what happens in our lives, we always fall back to our set point. We have a set point for happiness. We have a set point for love. We have a set point for how wealthy we think we deserve to be, until we can change our set point. And researchers have found that 50% of our set point comes from our genetics, as we've been talking about those limiting beliefs, or those spells, I now like to call them, of how our parents lived and what our parents believed. 10% comes from our circumstances, only 10%. Our job, our marital status, our wealth, current wealth, and the other 40% is determined by what you've been talking about, Tanya, our habitual thoughts and our feelings and our words and our actions. Aristotle taught we are what we repeatedly do. So any new way of being is simply forming a new habit. And when we know better, we have to do better. We have to form a new habit, which can feel uncomfortable and clunky initially. But the way we start to do that is and it takes care of that 40%. We start to create those new thoughts and those new beliefs that we want to have in our life. But the other 50% is genetic, and we need to address those in a different way, which we spoke about in, I think, episode 2, and that's actually dealing with our DNA, changing our DNA through frequencies, through all of those other energetic levels where we can change our frequencies and our DNA. And I want to just read a quote. This is my book, Hot Showers, Hot Coffee, Hot Sex, Lessons I Learned on My Travels. And quote number 63 says, all lessons I learned, 110 whilst I was traveling around the world. Lesson 68 says, I learned that whilst growing up, we absorb by osmosis. We absorb our core beliefs and our mindsets, which dictate the way we think and we behave. And in order to change those patterns of behavior, we must put in the effort to consciously create new ways of thinking about ourselves and our world, and therefore we will act differently. And if you think about when you go to the gym, initially it's uncomfortable and our muscles are sore and we're clunky on the equipment, or we're clunky when we run. But the more we do it, the more our muscles adapt and becomes easier and easier, because it becomes a new habit.
And I love what you're saying there, because I think, anybody who's tuning into our the Apple Pie Club and our conversations, don't just listen. Take some of what we're saying and apply it to your life, because we both just shared examples of my dog walking experience this morning, where I intervened my thought process and I stopped thinking about myself, and I thought, oh, well, I don't know why she yelled like that, but obviously there's a reason for it. And then I tried to understand it from that perspective, as you just shared your story. That's what happens when you take what we're saying, and you start contemplating it, considering it, applying it to your life, because that's the only way you're going to start getting rid of the bad layers of the onion.
Yeah, that's the only way.
Getting nice fresh ones around it.
Yeah.
You know, and everybody has bad layers of onions. None of us have swimmingly gone through life and never had bad experiences that haven't, really kind of etched in our mind.
No, not one person in the planet, not one person.
Nobody. So we can all look at someone and say, oh, look how hunky-dory their life is. Well, we don't really know that for sure, do we? Right. So stop comparing ourselves against people and just get on and change your thinking and your life so that you can live a fulfilling life.
Yeah. Because this is the problem with social media at the moment, is people are only posting these posts that, oh, life is so wonderful. And actually you find out that life's not so wonderful for them, but they're not posting that. They're only posting these great posts. And so we start to compare and think, well, my life should be wonderful like that. Yeah. No, just live your own life, live in your own lane and get to know yourself.
Yeah, social media is interesting, isn't it? I'm glad I wasn't born in this era. For our listeners, I think it's important to kind of also think about what you do reflect on, what comes up in your mind. How much of it is positive and how much of it is negative? Because we don't want to be constantly beating ourselves up and not having any compassion for ourselves.
Yeah.
As you said earlier, right? We really want to start nurturing self-compassion and compassion for other people, and to start living in light and not in darkness, in terms I call darkness in terms of negative thinking or anger or bitterness or anything like that. Mm-hmm. That, okay, yes, you're going to learn elements of that to know yourself. But if you want to know yourself and transcend into a better place, understand that. And it does require you probably confronting where the origins came from. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you want to master getting rid of them, overcoming them and beating them down.
Yeah, I love that. We can master our energy. It's up to us to decide if we're going to live in shame, guilt. And I just have to say the difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is I made a mistake. Shame is I am a mistake. And that's why shame is the lowest level of frequency you can live on, 20 out of 1,000. Okay. And so it's really good. Perhaps if you want to go back to, I think our first episode, we actually show that map of human consciousness. And it's really good it gives language about where you're living and what kind of things you can do to change and move your energy up into those higher vibrational frequencies where you're beginning to love life.
I think we'll do a complete episode, the difference between guilt and shame.
I think we should, coming up in the future.
Because it's something that women, or both sexes, I guess, but we tend to talk more to the female, experience that in midlife. Mm-hmm. And experience it if they've gone through a split up or divorce and they find themselves on their own, and that's not the fact. Yeah, we know that's not the fact. So it's something that we definitely want to take a deeper dive into that subject in itself to help people.
Yeah. I mean, everybody goes through moments of feeling guilty, but then that's different to regret. Okay, we all have times where we regret that we perhaps behaved in a certain way or something changed. The river changed, okay? But it's whether we stay in that space or not, or whether we're able to pick ourselves up. Like grief. Grief is on the frequencies of force. It's in one of those lower levels of frequency. But of course, we wouldn't be human if we didn't grieve the passing of a relationship, a person, the ending of a relationship, the passing of a person, or the ending of a situation, a circumstance. And I know someone who actually lived in a home for so long and then they moved. She grieved leaving her home. So grief in itself is not the problem. It's how long you stay there. It's when you overstay in those low frequency emotions.
Yeah, and you stop the water flowing. You stop the river.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
you drain it dry. And you stay in this stagnant, muddy waters. Yeah, you don't want to do that. So know that things change. Nothing stays static and nothing stays the same. Situations don't, and your mindset doesn't have to stay static. Yeah, your habits don't have to stay static.
And I think the last thing, maybe we just end, don't be in too much of a hurry to think, oh, I've got to know myself. I've got to know myself. Okay. And I'm going to do this course and that course. I mean, I'm a fan of self-development courses. Okay. I've done them, hundreds of them. So sometimes too, we just need to accept that if there's something we need to know, it's going to come to us. The experience, the lesson is going to come to us. Just take the lessons one step at a time along this journey of life.
Beautiful. Very sound advice. Love it. Okay, well, should we move on to we've got an exercise in this session, or do you want to say anything more before we move into the exercise?
No.
Okay, so to do this exercise, you're going to require a piece of paper and a pen. So you can either pause and then grab your paper and the pen. And when you come back, what I want you to do is get an A4 piece of paper and draw a line vertically down the middle of the paper. And on one side, I want you to put, I am worthy, right? So just do that for now. And then once you've got I am worthy, which would be on the left-hand side, I want you to imagine what your life would be like if you were really, really worthy of what you believed you were worthy of doing, achieving, living, thinking, whatever that be. Do you want to give an example?
I think, just imagine when you wake up in the morning, where are you? What kind of home are you living in? When you wake up in the morning, do you get up and go for a run? Do you make a cup of coffee and sit on your beautiful patio with your sea view? What is it that you're doing when you really and truly feel like you're living a worthy life? Who are you with? Who are you with? Are you with your family, your children? Are you with a beautiful partner? Are you single? Loving a single life, whatever it is. And then as you go, how do you go to work? Do you go down to a beautiful home office with another view of the sea? And how are you making your money? Are you going to? Are you head of a corporate company? Whatever it is. And when you come home at night, are you and your partner making a beautiful dinner together in the kitchen, or whatever it is? Imagine a day in your life, how it would be when you really feel worthy.
So write that down, take some time out and write that down. You can do this during the week, you can do it multiple times. Then once you've done that, on the right-hand column, you're going to put, I've just abbreviated it to current life, but it's, what does your life currently look like? Yeah. And again, play it out from what happens when you get up in the morning. Yeah. Who are you working with? What are you doing? What are your tasks? What money are you earning? Who's your friends? Everything like that. Just write down, what's your exercise regime? How much water are you drinking? What sort of food are you eating? Blah, blah, blah. What is currently taking place in your life? And then once you do that, the third step is to compare them. And compare them, and it will really become evident to you of certain things that you can actually have an impact on right now, which are quite easy. Some are going to be harder, some are going to be easy. Obviously, start with the easy ones and start putting some little changes into place, which are going to get you closer to living that worthy life and not being stagnant, but shifting over to the left-hand column from the right-hand column. One thing I do want to say is when you look at that, put a plan into place. Start planning. So I am going to do, and say, well, when are you going to do it? How often are you going to do it? If you put a plan into place and write it down and set some goals, it's more likely to happen. When we don't have a plan, it's less likely to happen. So also consider if you naturally aren't a planner. Some people are brilliant at planning, and I know you guys are listening. They go, all right, got the plan in place, and it's going to be easier for you because you've got the plan in place. For those of you who don't naturally plan, consider that. Consider saying, well, how am I going to do this? How am I going to achieve it?
And maybe have an accountability person. If you want to go for a run, do you have a friend who also wants to go for a run every morning, or a walk every morning, every evening? Find someone who can do that with you.
Yeah. And say, we're going to walk, and get them committed to walking Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, or whatever. Because we are notorious at, like, human beings, not of making bad decisions.
Yeah. And of course, what we're doing, we have to change our habits, remember? And it's so easy we've been in this habit for quite some time. So it's not going to be, the body's not going to feel comfortable when we are creating a new habit. And so I remember someone was talking about some research they did on how long it takes to form a new habit. And people were saying, oh, anything from 16 days, 24 days, 31 days. Well, what actually happened with this research? And they took a whole group of people who had never walked after dinner, and all they were going to do was to do a 10-minute walk around the block after dinner. That was the new habit. It took between 100 people, they researched. It took between 18 days and 245 days. So it depended to form that habit. And what we mean by form that habit was when they actually said, okay, let's go for my dinner. It wasn't even oh God, I don't want to do this anymore. Okay, do I really have to do this? That thought process is not there. It's like brushing my teeth. I don't have to think, oh, I don't want to brush my teeth. You just do it. It's your habit. So, and the reason they discovered after doing a little bit more research why it took some people 18 days and some people 245 was the level of resistance they had to forming that habit. So keep in mind, know thyself, okay? How much do you really want that to be part of your life? And then know your body's going to give you some resistance. So how are you willing to push through that resistance? And as soon as you deal with the resistance, which is the mindset, the habit actually forms quicker, a lot quicker.
Beautiful.
And I just want to also mention that when we say I'm worthy, we're not saying that we only become worthy when we can have this lifestyle. That is in our mind, our I'm worthy lifestyle. Okay, we are worthy because we exist on this planet. But it's a way for you to think, oh, wow, if I truly believed I was worthy, remember I said, if I truly believed I was powerful, how would I live? If I was a co-creator with spirit, what would I say? How would I live? So this is a way for you to think of something that you really believe you can achieve for the future, and have some small action steps along the way.
And remember how we started the quote, the most difficult thing in life is to know thyself. And this is all about opening up the ideas and the neuro pathways to help you understand yourself at a deeper level and to start to change and to achieve and live the life you want to live, ultimately. Would you like to say anything else before we end our...
Oh, I'm done. It's been a wonderful discussion. Thank you, Tanya. I've loved it. I'm on a continual journey of knowing myself, not beating myself up anymore, recognizing when I'm doing things that I don't want to do anymore, and changing those habits. So,
and likewise. Can't wait to see that girl in the morning. No, okay, listeners, thank you from the Apple Pie Club. See you next time.